There's a noise outside my office window that sounds like a tank rolling through the suburbs, but it's not a tank. It's just my wife, Ellie, coming home from the bagel shop, 8 months pregnant, rocking pastel pink Crocs and a bag of everything bagels. Not a weapon in sight, just swollen ankles and a determined look. You'd think we lived in a war zone, the way our neighbor Patricia called 911 screaming about seismic activity like she was reporting an earthquake, and the cops actually showed up to check for structural damage from my wife's footsteps. Yeah, that really happened. The officer rolls up to find Patricia in a bright yellow hard hat, wearing what looks like helicopter-grade headphones and waving around a hand-drawn seismic map. I know it sounds nuts, but you haven't even heard the best part. There were alarm sirens, a drone circling overhead, and Patricia holding court like some kind of suburban Bond villain. Let me back up a second. 3 months earlier, Ellie and I moved to Riverside Heights thinking we'd finally found some peace and quiet before the baby arrived. The lawns were perfect neighbors. Waved, the HOA seemed boring but normal. But then there was Patricia Vexley, 2 years running as HOA president, and now unofficially self-appointed noise cop, seismic activity monitor, and all-around enforcer of suburban order. She measured her coffee beans, timed her walks, and handed us a welcome packet so thick you'd think we were moving into the White House. Turns out the community standards Patricia loved so much were whatever rules kept her in control. The day all hell broke loose started off innocent enough. Ellie wanted bagels, so she took a walk good for the baby, good for her nerves. I'm sitting at my laptop, barely caffeinated, when suddenly it sounds like the city's tornado siren is wailing right outside my window. I run out thinking the world's ending, and instead I find Patricia fully geared up like she's working a construction site, red alarm light flashing in her window. And who's her target? My wife strolling along, minding her own business, looking like a poster for wholesome family living. Meanwhile, up in the sky, a white drone is tracking her, swooping lower every time Ellie passes a bush or a jogger. The police arrive, and Patricia starts in on her act, showing off her evidence, a messy crayon-marked map with red X's for impact zones and yellow circles for what she claims are damage hotspots. Our apartment ground zero, apparently. She busts out a tablet running some free earthquake app and tries to show the cop how she's tracking seismic disturbances, as if she's the only thing standing between our community and total collapse. She even hands over the drone's SD card, beaming with pride. The cop looks like he's regretting all his life choices. What Patricia doesn't realize is that her so-called evidence is about to blow up in her face because the SD card, it doesn't just have footage of Ellie's bagel run. It has 2 weeks of surveillance on half the neighborhood people unloading groceries, kids playing even old folks out for a stroll. And Patricia's not just recording, she's organizing it by family, labeling, files, keeping score. Officer Hernandez, the guy assigned to the case, calls me up a couple days later with a tone in his voice that makes my coffee go cold. "Mr. Carter, your neighbor has been running a one-woman surveillance op," he says. This isn't just about noise. I start looking around with fresh eyes, and sure enough, near the dumpster behind Building B, I find a hard drive stashed in a weatherproof case. I call Trevor, my old college buddy, who does cybersecurity real wizard, the kind of guy who thinks hacking his own Wi-Fi is a fun weekend. He cracks open Patricia's drive, and we're both floored. She's got a database of 23 families tracking everything from grocery deliveries to medical appointments, right down to priority targets, pregnant women, old folks, single parents. She's rating us all on a compliance scale and keeping detailed logs about who generates noise, who attracts visitors, who's threatening community harmony. Turns out Ellie and I are low scorers, heavy pregnancy, walking too many Instacart bags. The lady next door, Mrs. Chen, gets dinged for loud TV and frequent guests. Then we find the kicker, Patricia's past life. fired from her security job for installing illegal monitoring software, canned for violating privacy policy, the works. She even saved her own termination letter, which is honestly kind of sad. Receipts show thousands spent on surveillance tech. But what sends a chill down my spine is a corrupted file Phase 2 plan docs objective. Remove 12 non-compliant families within 6 months. The rest is trash data, but that's enough to tell us she's not just collecting dirt, she's trying to run folks out. Meanwhile, Ellie's stress is through the roof. She's having contractions, doctors worried, and the irony hits me. Patricia, champion of community health, is literally risking my wife's and unborn kids' health for her weird power trip. But when I think it can't get any crazier, I learn Patricia's also been pushing elderly neighbors like Mrs. Chen to sell, offering 60% market value, getting nasty when refused, calling old folks a liability. Mrs. Chen quietly shares her own investigation, and it turns out she's got the real goods, a 4K camera system left by her late husband, ex-IBM, that records everything Patricia does. The drone's not the only eye in the sky. With all this, Trevor recovers more of that corrupted file. Turns out Patricia's not acting alone. She's been working with Zenith Development, a corporate developer that wants to gentrify our neighborhood. The plan: harass vulnerable families, get them to sell cheap. Then Zenith swoops in, buys up, and redevelops for profit. Pregnant women, old folks, single moms were demographic obstacles. Patricia gets $50,000 up front and a bonus for every family relocated. Suddenly, this isn't just about one busybody with a hard hat, it's about corporate land grabs. But here's the real twist. Mrs. Chen's camera footage shows Patricia wasn't just spying. She was hacking the building Wi-Fi, installing hardware to intercept smart home data, even accessing voice assistants. Trevor finds evidence she was running a full network tap, collecting data from every device, every family, every phone call. When we finally look inside the drone, hidden thermal cameras mapping the insides of people's homes, Patricia isn't just violating HOA rules, she's setting a new bar for suburban creepiness. I know we have enough for a case, but Patricia moves first. I get a legal threat from the HOA, industrial espionage, harassment, you name it. She edits her footage, flips the script, tries to paint me as the bad guy. Then the police show up again, this time with an actual complaint that I'm cyber-stalking her. The stress lands Ellie in the hospital, doctor's orders for total rest or the baby might come early. That's when I decide I'm done playing defense. I pull together every family Patricia targeted, share evidence, compare stories. The Johnsons with twins, the elderly Martinez couple, Sarah Kim, the single mom, all of them pressured, threatened, cited for nonsense violations. Trevor uncovers proof Patricia used AI to doctor audio, faking fights and turning whispers into disturbances. Even the doctor testifies Ellie isn't the only pregnant woman who suffered stress-related complications under Patricia's management. At the emergency HOA hearing, Patricia arrives with a cardboard model of the community and her cousin, a so-called acoustics expert, whose degree is printed off Facebook. But this time I have Mrs. Chen's footage, Trevor's tech breakdown, and surprise, an email from a woman who worked with Patricia at her old job. She reveals Patricia was manipulated by her previous employer, who turned her attention to detail into illegal surveillance, then scapegoated her when the feds closed in. Patricia was never the mastermind Zenith picked her because she was vulnerable, desperate to prove herself after her divorce and custody loss. The hearing goes viral when Mrs. Chen streams it to thousands on Facebook. Then Marcus Rothel, Zenith's CEO, struts in with 2 lawyers thinking he can bluff us. But Trevor's already hacked Zenith's email server. We've got internal memos detailing their whole operation, even calling Patricia expendable. Emails showed they targeted her precisely because of her personal baggage, planning to frame her for every crime once they finished hollowing out the neighborhood. Patricia breaks down in front of everyone, and for a split second, I feel something almost like pity. Just then the FBI walks in. Mrs. Chen had tipped them off weeks ago. Zenith's top brass gets hauled off in cuffs. Patricia collapses and the live stream explodes. 3 weeks later, Ellie gives birth to our son, healthy as can be, and Patricia, now in therapy and on probation, sends a handwritten apology with a baby gift. Marcus is sentenced to 8 years and $50 million in restitution, while our community comes out stronger, neighbors united, and justice for once actually feels real. Sometimes it's a pair of pink Crocs that brings down an empire. Sometimes the weakest folks expose the strongest corruption. If you've ever watched someone abuse their power and wondered if it was possible to fight back, well, you just saw how it's done. So what would you do if this happened in your neighborhood? Would you go to war or walk away? Drop a comment, subscribe, and let's talk about what justice looks like where you live. Because stories like this don't just belong in the suburbs, they belong everywhere.